Hello, everybody. My name is Calvin Winner, and I'm Head of Collections at the Sainsbury Centre. The subject of my talk is a work by acclaimed artist Lawrence Edwards. It's called Man of Stones, and this is the latest addition to the region's largest sculpture park at the University of East Anglia. I'd like to give you some context to the sculpture park. It's curated by the Sainsbury Centre, the University Museum. The centre is committed to bringing the very best UK and international art to the region for the benefit of students, staff, and general visitors, and encourage greater engagement with the wider community and extend public access to the campus parkland as a civic amenity to the city as well as to the region. The sculpture park idea has been gathering momentum since 2016, when internationally renowned British sculptor Antony Gormley helped to launch the initiative. We now have works by artists such as Henry Moore, Elizabeth Frink, Lillian Lynn, Lynn Chadwick, as well as Antony Gormley. We have 22 sculptures, and we're adding several each year. Now, to give you a sense of the sculpture park, its broad themes, it's framed around art, architecture, and environment. And a little bit of context to that, there's 360 acres of natural environment, there's woodland, there's veteran trees, some oaks over 500 years old. There's Broad, the name given to lakes in this region, a river valley, wetlands, and Earlham Park, which is a 18th century landscaped country estate parkland. And it's open access to everyone all year round. Now here's some examples of the architecture. The main core campus was designed by the British modernist architect called Denis Lasdun. And here we see his accommodation buildings, so-called ziggurats, some of the most famous structures on the campus. And then the museum building itself, the Sainsbury Centre by Norman Foster, designed in the 1970s and completed in 1978, with slightly more formal sculpture gardens in the curtilage of the building. And we just see here a Henry Moore sculpture to the left. And to give some historic context to this, here we are, it's a photograph from 1978, Henry Moore, Norman Foster and Robert Sainsbury placing sculptures in the landscape. So this idea goes right back to the foundation of the museum. It's just that now we've taken the initiative right across the campus itself to create the sculpture park. Now coming more to more recent times, this is 2018, when we held a major retrospective of the work of Elizabeth Frink, and we placed two sculptures by her in the landscape, Mirage 1 and Mirage 2. And this was really the first time we'd started to move away from the museum building itself and actually to stretch out into the landscape. And here we can see these two sculptures majestically placed against the lake. So now I'd like to focus on Lawrence Edwards. Lawrence has worked on a number of projects in natural environments in East Anglia, such as coastal creeks, rivers, marshland. He has a sensitive and respectful approach to interventions into landscape. This work, A Thousand Tides, a celebrated work at Buttley Creek in Suffolk, where the work is submerged twice daily by the incoming tide. And these watery places have helped to shape and inform Lawrence's sculpture. And according to Lawrence, then rivers, creeks and tributaries feed the landscape much like the veins and vascular systems feed the body. His works are imbued with a significance of place. They speak of landscape, process and body. They're temporal and they trace the passage of time. So Lawrence is one of the most important figurative sculptors working in the UK today, and very prominent in the region, living and working in Saxmundham, and he has his own foundry in Halesworth. His sculpture has been seen and admired both nationally and internationally, and this was an important commission for Lawrence, as his work relates closely to East Anglia, and the opportunity for the Sainsbury Centre to showcase an important artist who is from and works in the region. And here we see a work from 2008, The Creek Men, which made an appearance in that year at the Aldeburgh Festival. So Man of Stones, it's a figurative sculpture, it's site-specific work. It was unveiled last October in 2019, the result of 2 years of planning, and this 2.5 metre tall figure was cast in bronze at the artist's own foundry. It was the first site-specific sculpture in this new phase of the sculpture park and the first to respond directly to the natural environment. Now, I'd like to give you a sense of some of the broader themes in Lawrence's work, which are largely focused on his concern with the figure in landscape. The biography of veteran trees, seen in the landscape art of Constable and Crome, Anglo-Saxon burials such as Sutton Hoo, the resting place for Radwald, and the so-called Sandman, shadows in the sand of Anglo-Saxon burials. Also the evidence of early humanoids excavated on the Norfolk and Suffolk coast at Haysborough and Pakefield. He also draws on the region's geology, geological time, flint, soft shelly cliffs, and the Cromer forest bed, and the mysterious flint paramudras found on the chalk reefs in the region. And the landscape writing of Seybold, Macfarlane, but also J.D. Ballard, notably The Crystal World, merging of the figure with nature, a metaphor for the fragile state of the natural world and our place in it. And the character of Man of Stones, an archetype, a reimagined green man for contemporary times. So the figure is encrusted with source material the artist collected from the site, fallen branches, twigs, fungi, bulrushes, and flint stones all incorporated into the sculpture, cast in bronze. By this symbolic act, the merging with landscape and nature is a physical one, to remind the spectator that humanity is part of nature and not dependent of it. First modelled in clay, before casting in bronze, the natural found material turned into moulds and joined to the figure before being cast in bronze. These processes are important to the artist, increasingly modelling, adding and subtracting, and the evocation of loss evoked by the lost wax method. The torso is encrusted with flinty stones sourced both from the site and also local beaches, symbolically signalling the ground from which the figure may have emerged. This benign figure, a guardian of nature, offering protection to its watery home, as if Man of Stones has emerged from the river or Broad, once a quarry where stone aggregate was taken to build the university. The flints could also represent the usefulness of this local stone for church building, but also the history of knapping or the hand axes of prehistory that often emerge from the landscape. So the brief was for the artist to respond to one of the more remote locations of the Yare River Valley that runs through the university campus. It's a conservation area important for ecology, habitats for endangered species, and rare fauna and flora. The site selected by Edwards on a promontory of land between the River Yare and the Broad is deceptively remote and a wild place within the campus. With reed marsh and woodland that act as a backdrop, the hope that the sculpture merges with nature. Its proximity to the river and Broad key to its understanding. That is not an addition to, rather is part of its environment. The figure is intimately linked to nature and its surroundings from which it has emerged. So a low impact installation to disturb the site as little as possible. A number of environmental measures were implemented, were ecology reports, impact case studies to mitigate the impact of this intervention. And here we can see the sculpture on its journey to its final resting place in the promontory of land between river and Broad. Here you can see I'm just carefully lifting a branch of a tree as the sculpture is brought along the path. A light foundation was designed of gabion or metal cage containing flints to stabilize the sculpture, but whilst reducing the impact on the site itself. All of that would be hidden, of course, when the sculpture was finally completed and installed. The sculpture is viewed from a well-used path between the Broad and the river. This is fully accessible to all. It's possible to reach the sculpture directly, but not encouraged, so that the immediate environs can remain wild, where the land falls away towards the river. The spectator may initially be startled by the sight of the tall figure, but is anticipated this will be followed by a more celebratory response, and that the figure will be seen as a guardian, offering protection to its watery home, less for haunting presence and more benign, a blessing. So in summary, Man of Stones is concerned with nature, ecology, and geology, and our relationship to the environment, and positions that it appears to be emerging from the primordial landscape. The location of Manor Stones was carefully chosen where sculpture merges with nature, its proximity to the river and Broad key to its understanding, and a reminder to the spectator that humanity is part of nature and not independent of it. Thank you very much.